I want to tell you a love story. A love story so deep it has lasted for thousands of years. When you love someone or something, you do everything you can to protect them. You fight for them. You nurture them. Love is a set of emotions and behaviors characterized by intimacy, by passion, and by commitment. All of this the Indigenous people have felt for the river systems and the salmon that call them home. But the pure love for this country has, in many cases, become a very abusive relationship. This abuse manifests itself in the decline of a healthy habitat for both the salmon and those of us that depend on them. This is the love story of our relationship with these swimmers. For without them, we simply would not exist. When the salmon would come up the river, they were silver, they were strong, and they were like clockwork. We knew when they were going to be there. You know, we had the moccasin telegraph. We'd hear that, you know, they're catching them down in the Lillooet area. Then they'd be at the Esquette area. And then, you know, so we knew when they were coming. I started going down the river probably in my early teens, and it was the social event of the year. Everybody'd be getting their smokehouses ready and canning jars out, washing them and everything, and then we'd go fishing. It was just a great place to be, and even if you weren't fishing, you wanted to be down the river because of the social interaction among our people and other people that came to fish at our village. And you'd see fires all along the river where people were fishing.
My relationship to the water was 6 or 7 days a week we'd eat seafood. Everything we ate, you know, came from the sea. It was seafood that made us strong. It's an integral part of our relationship to the land and to each other. Without the salmon, we would not have the culture, amazing culture, masks, songs and dances and people, organized societies. Without the salmon, we wouldn't be here.
It was my grandpa Lawrence that led me to the river. He was catching salmon to put in a deep freeze. It was our duty to pack the salmon from the bowl and clean them and rinse them with the garden hose.
That's how we live. That's our main source of food, is fish.
There. Now we got lots of fish.
Fishing was so good. Oh, it was so good. People were rich. We weren't rich in that way, but we're rich in our culture. Very rich.
But this is how we cut for the barbecue. And just cut along the bones here. This is made from an old saw blade. It was the filleting knives that we used for all forms of the fish cutting in our old villages. Not too many uses it now, but it was basically the same shape of the knives that we used. And this is done now. We can barbecue that if we want it. And even the head, it can be barbecue as well. I just put this to help make it a little easier to put the cross pieces in. And I generally put 4 in there just to make sure it's firm. Smith Inlet, where we were traditionally from, was the 3rd biggest commercial harvest on the coast. We had numerous canneries there for commercial fisheries, and it was just, you know, when I was still young enough to do this kind of work for our people, our family, you know, we had no difficulty accessing really good, clear, clean fish that you know, you never see anything wrong with it. You know, it sustained our families. You know. I remember having 300 sockeye just for our family, and it was for jarring, canning, or barbecuing, or drying. You know.
The salmon were strong, they were solid, they were silver, they were, you know, really healthy. And then about 40 years ago, we started seeing changes in them. We started to see more worms in them. We started to see them, they were more battered up. They were exhausted, they were unhealthy.
I've been running a boat since I was 22. I've been fishing on a boat since I was 4. In the summer months, I fish for salmon, right from the Fraser River to the Nass River. This year has been the worst year I've seen. As fishermen, we all know they're encountering a high mortality rate, which should have never happened. It only happened because of the inability to make decisions and actually protect the species and their habitat.
The stocks have depleted because of forestry practices, no management of the fisheries and oceans department, and greed on the part of some commercial fishermen. The reality is that we're not going to have any wild stock. They're killing the spring salmon, they're killing the coho, they're killing the sockeye, and the food that we've depended upon for so many years, well, forever.
The salmon spawn in the mountains, in the streams, and then they return to the ocean for various years, and then they travel back to their homes where they lay their eggs in the spawning grounds. There's so much pollution that they have to swim through. Businesses build along water. They need cheap ways to dump their waste. So they dump their waste directly into the Fraser River.
We have a creek running by my place. We've always used it. It's always been healthy water. And then all of a sudden, we were put on a boil water advisory. For probably 10, 12 years. We couldn't drink the water out of the creek. And they blamed it on the beavers, which is ridiculous because the beavers have been there forever. They were, you know, in abundance always, and beavers actually clean the creek.
Who has allowed human beings to get so lazy and get so out of order where we can now just leave our garbage there forever? I just felt a pure sense of disgust when I walked down that wharf because I could see oil in the water, I could see cans floating, bottles. Like, that's 110% direct pollution to our waters. And it's even on important places like a wharf where we collect our food, like where you eat, you're polluting where you eat. We care about our kids, we care about our grandmas, we care about our grandpas, we care about our families. Why don't we care about the grass and the water and the fish that swim and feed us and give us life?
It's scary. Like, one day we're not going to get one fish.
There are two economies. There's the Indigenous economy that swims in the water and walks on the land. And then you have the other monetary economy, you know, that is destroying the other one. People go out and they don't even think of what it takes to keep the natural economy healthy. They violate all kinds of laws in their pursuit of money, which is not going to do them any good in the future. There's a Cree saying that, you know, you can't eat money.
I think that each and every person has to ask themselves what value system is sacred to you. What produced you as an individual human being? In our case, it was the salmon, and that's what made us strong. That's what our cultures evolved around and have for thousands of years. People have to have a look at the relationship, you know, to the land and the food and the sea and the resource, and obviously to each other. I mean, if you don't recognize that you're dependent upon some relationship to Mother Earth, you know, they're going to starve to death, or they're going to kill each other, you know, over the last remaining resources.
It is so important that people remain in touch with the natural world because they really need to understand what it takes for them to have everything in the grocery store, you know, everything that they need. Everything comes from the land and the waters. People have water that's not drinkable, so they pour all kinds of money in there to try to fix it. Instead of saying, well, this mining company or this resource extraction is damaging it, let's fix that. And at some point, they're not going to be able to fix it anymore.
Salmon run going up that stretch of the Fraser is in jeopardy. We should be trying to enhance areas that are still wild and uninhabited. We have to make a concerted effort to protect our rivers and streams, and if we don't do that, the downward trend is going to continue.
We go and we cut down the trees, we destroy the environment, but it's going to eventually catch up to everybody. And even though the Indigenous people are impacted first, it doesn't matter where you live, it's going to impact everyone at some point, and we have to change it.
I think that Aboriginal people have a lesson to teach to non-Aboriginal people. You've got to put your roots down somewhere, even if you're immigrants. You've got to have respect for the land and the resources. Otherwise, you're going to die.
Canada wants to reconcile with the Indigenous people, but the first thing that they need to do is reconcile with Mother Earth. We need to look at Indigenous people in every part of the world and bring their information in and start listening to Indigenous people. The natural laws of the land and the waters dictate how we need to treat the environment, and that has to be incorporated into the bigger picture. There is a saying that only two things in life are certain: death and taxes. I say that there are three things, and the third is that the Indigenous peoples will always be in their territories. We don't have a homeland to go to. This is our homeland. We will always be here fighting for our territories and fighting to protect the resources that all our relations, whether they be four-legged, winged, or finned, depend upon. The natural laws of Mother Earth need to be strengthened for the benefit of the whole human race. We all need to reconcile our relationship with Mother Earth. We cannot continue to threaten the wildlife and destroy the habitat of fish, the solid economy that used to be a guarantee of our survival. Our waters and lands need a divorce from the abusers. We need to get out of this abusive relationship, and each one of us has a responsibility to do so.